Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I am your host. And today I have a very special guest on. His name is Jermaine Galloway, but you might know him as Tall Cop Says Stop. And you're going to understand what all that means here in a minute. But what I'd like you to do is go ahead and share this out with everybody that you know, share it across all social media platforms and stay with us. We'll be right back with Jermaine. All right, we're back. Let me bring Jermaine on. Jermaine, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate you having me. Thanks.
I'm grateful to have you on here. It took a while.
It does, man. I travel a lot. I'm on airplanes a lot. If you could do a virtual on an airplane, I would have been able to do this a while ago. So
yeah. So I know you're very, very busy and very sought after as far as a speaker and everything else that you're doing. So I appreciate you taking the time. And just so everybody knows, you got to go catch a flight right after this.
Right after, I'm already dressed and ready to go. Right after I'm done, I'll be walking out in about 5 minutes and jumping on a flight to Wisconsin. So
wow, that's insane. So Jermaine, I started this show. Honestly, it was for selfish reasons. I was stuck in life at the time. And I thought, if I just interview enough people and find out how they got through it, maybe it'll help me and other people can hear it too. So, and it worked. So talk about, start out with telling everybody where it all began for you. Where were you born and raised?
So Orange County, California. I'm a Cali kid. So I went to Kennedy High School in Orange County. So I grew up near Knott's Berry Farm, Disneyland. Okay. That area, that's where I was born and raised. Both of my parents, though, are from Texas. So my mom's from Beaumont, which is near Louisiana, the area that gets hit with all the hurricanes and all that over there outside Houston. And my dad is from San Saba, which is a little tiny 4,000 person town about an hour and a half out of Austin. And that's where there's deep Galloway roots that go back there. We even have a memorial, not statue, but stone in the city park with our last name on. It's the only one in the whole park. So yeah, a little family history of the Galloway family here.
That's kind of cool. I've been through Beaumont actually on my way to Houston. I feel like I went through Beaumont at some point when I was coming from Louisiana area. And I feel like I've been through there. Because I remember going through thinking, I've heard of Beaumont, Texas. I don't know why, but
yeah. Basically an hour and a half out of Houston. So exactly. You went right through Beaumont. A few 100,000 people. So it's actually a pretty good sized town, but you went right through Beaumont.
Okay. So but you grew up in Orange County.
Yes. California. So my parents in their 20s both left Texas. They didn't know each other. They both left Texas. Went to California. They met in California, and then I was born and raised in California. So even though both my parents are Texans, they didn't know each other in the state. So not until they both went to California.
So talk about what it was like for you growing up in. I mean, especially since your parents are from small towns. I mean, and here they are now in Orange County, California, which is a big area. What was that like for you growing up there as a kid? Of course, you didn't know anything different, probably.
Yeah, that's all I knew. We traveled a little bit, though, but that's all I knew. So I loved California because the weather, I mean, we work, and they still do. We wear coats in 70-degree weather. So we have coats on, sport coats on, like 65 degrees. It's almost comical now. But I would wear my Letterman's jacket. It'd be 72 outside. I have my Letterman's jacket on. So I loved growing up there. I did play basketball, so I wasn't very good in basketball young, and then I became tall and then pretty darn good later. So most of my kind of childhood was based around sports and really just basketball. I played a little baseball. I was terrible. played soccer. I was too long and lanky and everywhere for soccer. So I was too skinny for football at the time. So I ended up being a basketball player. Yeah, growing up there.
Wow. You're the reason. Just can I tell everybody how tall you are? It's
Yeah,
insane.
go for it. Absolutely. Of course you can.
He's 6'9", y'all. 6'9". I've met Jermaine in person, and I remember being probably visibly shocked at how tall. I was like, wow, I'm 6 foot and I feel fairly, average, but geez. So you're the reason they raised the official height of the basketball. There
were some dudes before me, but yeah, there was a couple guys before me. Your George Mikan and Bill Russell and people like that. But yeah. So I don't know if they raised it for me, but I did all right. I hung in there. Okay.
Yeah. So what was in like? I don't know Orange County. I don't know is that part of LA or is that?
No, LA is in LA County, but Orange County borders LA County. Orange County is a wealthy county. Now I grew up middle class. I was right on the LA County border, but I was near Long Beach and kind of those areas. That's where the city of La Palma, where I grew up, small little speck in Orange County, was there. But as you start going to Anaheim and Anaheim Hills and all that, that's where you hear those, soccer players and a bunch of athletes and the pro beach volleyball guys. They're all from there. In Orange County, the further into the county you get, the more wealthy it gets. So Orange County is a very wealthy county overall. Knott's Berry Farm, Disneyland are in Orange County. Newport Beach, Balboa, all that stuff. So once you start getting,
that's my buddy Joe. He lives in Orange County, actually. That's Joe Ingram. He knows. He's like, I'm like, dude, how do you deal with living in California? He goes, I don't. I live in Orange County.
yeah, exactly. And my mom's still there. My mom's in Anaheim Hills. So my mom, we still go to Orange County a little bit. My mom's still in Anaheim Hills, and then my dad, who's passed away now, is buried in Orange County. He's buried in Cypress. So we still come through there.
Wow. So, and I don't know what grunt style, Jermaine sporting grunt style. What's that mean?
Okay, so Grunt Style is a clothing line. They're actually out of San Antonio, Texas. So they're our neighbors out here outside Dallas. It is a clothing line, pro God, pro military, pro law enforcement. Go to their website. It's a great clothing. It's a national clothing line. They have storefronts in Atlanta and Nashville and kind of everywhere. It's a very popular clothing line nationwide. So it's just, this one is my own tall cop. You can probably see it a little bit. It's my own tall cop one. And then on the back, you can see the Texas logo on the back there.
Oh my God. Do you sell that?
I do sell it. I'm actually just about to re-up an order because I only ordered a few. And after I ordered a few, everyone bought them up. So,
dude, you gotta come on. We're neighbors, man. You gotta hook a brother up here, man.
I do.
That is awesome.
This is personalized to me. So my grunt, you can do an order. It takes a couple months, but I personalized it. I guess I'm giving them a little plug now. So I personalized it and did that. And then we have another one in Texas called Relentless Defender, which is another one. It's a really cool clothing line also. So both of those are two that I support a lot.
Wow. That is really awesome. I love that design, man. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get into what you're doing and what all that means here in a minute, and your logo, you can't help but go, what in the world does that mean? But you grew up, and I know you went to college and you played basketball in college. Talk about that, because you get through high school, you do all of that. You end up in college, and did you go on scholarship?
I did. I was an all-state basketball player coming out of California. We went to CIF. We almost won CIF. We lost by 2 points. Not that I remember it all, but we lost the championship game by 2 points to Trabuco Hills. So ended up, not that I remember that at all. So I ended up getting a scholarship. I moved around in college. I went to DePaul University on a full ride scholarship, which is in Chicago. Went there my first year. Didn't play a lot. Got very homesick, and then ended up transferring back to University of San Francisco. So Orange County to San Francisco is about a 6-hour drive up north. So I transferred to USF. I played ball there. And for you guys who don't know, Bill Russell, Bill Cartwright both went there. USF's one of the only schools to win back-to-back NCAA titles, like Duke and some others. They won in 55, 56. A lot of people don't realize that. So played there. That's where I graduated from. That's where my degree's from. But my last year, kind of coincidentally enough, my last year, I wasn't going to play. We had a new coach come in. I played for him 1 year. I didn't like him. 7 guys ended up transferring out. None of us liked them. And, in that time, it's not like what you see with the NIL stuff now where players have power now. When I played, which would have been in those early 90s, we had no power at all. Your coach could be a jerk. Your coach could, lack of a better term, screw you over. We had zero power at all to do anything, say anything. So you get a new coach that you didn't really sign up for who comes in, they would basically run you out many times. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened. So my last year, though, I fought that a little bit. I wasn't just going to let them run me out. I was a good student, was a good kid, didn't get in trouble, had my head on straight, was raised right. So I fought it a little bit, and ultimately this kind of pissed the coach off, which was kind of cool for me. The university said, your last year, you don't have to play, and we're still going to honor your scholarship, because he wanted to run me out and give my scholarship to one of his guys.
Wow.
So that really set him off, and, I was like, good. So I was going to keep my scholarship at USF my last year, not have to play, but not have to pay anything. I was going to school for free. Wow. And I was going to graduate. Well, a call comes in about a month before. This is what start kind of where I am now in life. About a month before, a call comes in from Idaho, a little school in Idaho. And the coach, I won't even take his phone call. It's pre-cell phones. So I don't even take his phone call. He's calling me on my hard line in my hotel, in my dorm room. And he says, hey, I want you to come out here and play for me in Idaho. I hear your situation out there at USF. No, you're a good player, good kid. We want you to come play in Idaho. I said, I graduated semester. I have my scholarship. I have a job on campus. Like, life is good here. I mean, I'm going to school for free and I don't have to play.
Right.
So I'm good. I've already played 4 years. I've already moved to 2 different colleges. I'm done. So ultimately he convinces me to take a day visit out there. And so I fly from San Francisco, or actually Oakland, to Boise, Idaho. All right. So to give you an idea, San Francisco, I don't know, a couple million people. Boise, Idaho at the time is probably 120,000. And this college is 30 miles out of Boise. And the town's probably 35,000 people in rural Idaho. So I'm in culture shock. I didn't know where Idaho was on the map. I'm not even kidding. I had to look at a map to see where this place even was. So I go out there, but I kind of like it. It's a slower pace. As you guys know, when you leave the big city and you go to a smaller area, you're like, you know what? I can park in front of my restaurant. I don't have to park in parking garages. I don't have $19 pizza. At that time, it was $5 pizza. Everything was just laid back. Yeah. So long story short, I ended up transferring. I ended up going to this little school in Idaho called College of Idaho. Later, fast forward, my son ended up playing there. My oldest boy actually playing there later. Yeah, because I had the full intention of just going there, staying 6 months, going back to San Francisco and getting into law enforcement. Well, I stayed in Idaho for 23 years. I didn't leave. So I didn't leave till 6 years ago. Stayed for 23 years. So yeah, I still graduated from USF because I had all my units transferred back and everything. Because again, I didn't plan on staying in Idaho, but I ended up staying 23 years.
Wow. That's a part of the story I was not familiar with.
Yeah.
So is that where your law enforcement career was?
It was. I worked
in Idaho.
Yeah. I started.
Do they even have crime in Idaho?
They do now, because guess what? Everyone from Texas, California, Arizona, especially California, they're all going to Idaho. They're all fleeing those states because they're fleeing population. They're fleeing some of those cities that are high levels of crime, and they're all going to Idaho. So guess what? Idaho's crime's going up because their population's going up rapidly, and their infrastructure is having a hard time catching up with that. So one of the interesting parts about that is when I was there, people I knew left their front doors unlocked, left their cars unlocked, and you could leave your purse in the front seat, and it was there when you came back from the shopping mall. I mean, no one messed with anything. That has changed. There's been some more crime. There's been some more officer-involved shootings there. There's been just more of what you see in big cities, and that Boise area is rapidly growing. When I go back now, it looks very different than what it did when I just lived there 6 years ago.
Is it? Yeah. Well, it's happening in here. I mean, we've only been in Salina for 2 years, and it's like, what is going on? And I see stuff in the Facebook groups locally. I'm like, that kind of talk didn't occur 2 years ago when, but anyway, we won't go there. But so you were in Boise then?
Yes, I was a police officer for Boise PD from 99 to the end of 2015. So I worked 18 years total. I started 1 year in a county jail, 1 year for a small agency called Caldwell PD. But where I wanted to be was the biggest city in Idaho, because I'm still a big city guy, kind of. So Boise, which now is probably 250,000, 300,000. So it's the size of like Frisco or Plano now. Which they're the biggest city in the state of Idaho. Idaho's probably only just under 3 million, maybe total in the whole, so it's smaller than our metroplex we live in.
Yeah.
So went there, had a great career there. I worked DUI task force. I was arrested DUIs. I was a field training officer. I also ran the alcohol program, prevention, education, enforcement. I was a fake ID trainer. I trained bars on fake IDs. I trained restaurants on fake IDs. I trained law enforcement on fake IDs, which is what kind of started me into what I'm doing now. I started educating people on alcohol programs, underage drinking, enforcement, bar patrols, over service, anything I did with alcohol in the city of Boise. I ran it for about 10 years.
Wow.
A lot of program underage stings, seeing if minors could acquire alcohol from restaurants, bars. I ran all of that. If you do a kind of a Google search for Jermaine Galloway, Boise alcohol, you'll see some articles, because I was interviewed quite a bit. You'll see some of the stuff from our stings and stuff.
So that's a couple things. Number one, back when I was a kid, it would have been cool to know somebody like you, because you probably know how to make a great fake ID.
Well, I knew where they all came from. I could tell you all the websites and everything. I knew where they all came from. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm a recovered alcoholic, 22 years sober. So I love what you're doing, man. I absolutely love it. My buddy Doug Wing.
You have your coin with you? Do you keep your coin with you?
Dude, August 10th is my date. The green screen effect is messing it up, but
awesome.
Yeah, man, 22 years, August 10th. But by the grace of God, I'm very grateful. But my buddy Doug Wing, he's from Salt Lake. His father's the founder of Little Giant Ladders. And Doug,
I see him right there. They're honoring the Hero Foundation.
He does a lot with the Utah State Patrol. So
I work with those guys too. Great guys, yes. Yeah.
So I have a lot of friends in law enforcement. I actually have, I'm not going to take it out, but you can tell that's the outline of a challenge coin. And I've done a lot for, like the Ohio Narcotics Officers Association when I lived in Ohio, and the DEA was involved. And I've seen some crazy stuff that civilians don't get to see. But I ran all of the technology and website stuff. So I've seen, when you're doing the stuff that you were doing in Boise, I'm just curious, because Columbus is a pretty big town compared to Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
The cartel involvement in moving drugs through our country is, to me, mind-blowing how much it's going on. Is that prevalent in Boise, Idaho?
So not in the city, but in the county, yes. Once you leave Boise City, it gets very rural really quickly. You can be 20 miles out of Boise, and now you're in a very rural area. Low population, low law enforcement presence, all of it. And up there, yes. One of the counties is Boise County, where they find marijuana grows, large-scale grows, and all that. Yes, once you get out of the city. In the city, not so much. Out of the city, yes.
Yeah. Well, and it's a different world up there. I mean, Idaho's certainly a different world, but so what are some of the things when you were in law enforcement, that kind of, because you have this organization called Tall Cop Says Stop.
Yeah.
First, where did that come from? Is it something from your career that kind of created this?
Yeah, and I mean, we could spend the whole hour on how this started. So let me give you a snapshot of it. So I started doing a lot of alcohol programs, make a long story short. Okay. And other agencies see what we're doing, and they say, neighboring agencies in that Boise area, hey, can you come over and show us what you're doing and how you do it? Train our officers. So because you can't double dip. So you either do it as a police officer, which means you don't get any extra pay for it, and you just show up in uniform, but you can use your police equipment and all that, right?
Right.
Or you take time off and you go as a private entity, your own LLC. So when I started with all this, I started as a police officer. Just, hey, Officer Galloway, will you come over and show us? Sure, neighboring agency. We know all these guys. The chiefs know each other. will you go speak at the Chiefs conference? Yes. Will you go speak over here? Other agencies, show us how to do this. Because they don't have funding. Small agencies in Idaho at the time don't have funding to bring in a national speaker. So and I wasn't one at the time. So I'd go there and show them some programs, how to do this, train their people up. Well, then I spoke at a couple national conferences, but I would go as an officer. Like when you go to a conference, you might see officer so-and-so from LAPD who's going to teach you about, suicides or something like that. Well, he's probably funded by the PD to go there. It makes the PD look good. They have one of their guys speaking, all the rest. So that's what I would do. It would, be there as Officer Galloway from Boise PD. Well, now you're starting to get some exposure, and people are like, hey, Columbus, Ohio. I remember one of the first ones I did was in North Carolina. We want you to come out here. Well, now it doesn't really benefit Boise for me to be going to North Carolina, Wyoming, or Ohio to be training people, right? Because they're paying me. So ultimately, I would have to take time off. Then I started going out there on my own, just doing it. And I remember one of my first trainings was in Wyoming. It was in the area of Rock Springs, Wyoming, if you know where that is.
No.
We'll put it this way. It was a very small airplane, okay, where I could see the cockpit and I could see through the front window. And I said, I don't think we're supposed to be able to do that, right? And like, when someone runs up there, I don't like this. Don't y'all shut a door or something? I mean, I don't want to, this is weird. So, and when you fly out of Denver, if you guys have ever flown through Denver, Denver's bouncy anyways. Okay.
Yeah.
When you fly a plane that's that big out of Denver, I remember being up in the air saying, Lord, if you let us land, I will never be on this plane again. Right. I've flown there like one other time in 20 years. I won't ever fly. I drive. I refuse to fly airline.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm not skittish with flying, but that was an uncomfortable experience. So anyways, so they paid me like a couple $100. So it cost me more money to take time off to go train them than it did to train them. So with that, I started getting this exposure. And then after a while, it's like, okay, I need to develop my own company because now my name's getting out there and I'm going on my own. So we decide with Tall Cop Says Stop. I'm tall. I'm a cop. I thought it was simple, but now, I walk into a room. People are like, hey, are you the tall cop? In airports, I've had flight attendants. Hey, are you the tall cop? I mean, there's people I run into. Once the best was in Mexico. My wife and I are on vacation in Mexico. We walk into our hotel restaurant to grab dinner. Guy yells across saying, hey, you're the tall cop. I mean, I was like, holy cow, really? So that has kind of taken off and developed a name of its own. But that's how it started. And it mostly started with alcohol, where now 95% of what I talk about is drugs. So it's completely switched to drugs more than alcohol because of everything you see trending and going on.
Yeah, I just watched an interview, just like a few minutes of an interview that Trump did with some kid, and they were talking about fentanyl and all this stuff that, like, I mean, it's out of control in the United States, well, globally, but specifically in the United States for sure. So what
significantly worse? Oh, you haven't seen anything yet. It's going to get significantly worse.
Really?
Yeah. Much, much, much worse.
I have a buddy that's I don't know if he's still the director or president of the Ohio Narco, but he's a chopper pilot and he runs the Southern Ohio major crimes, whatever. I don't know. His name's D'Lo. D'Lo, if you're watching, what's up? But so D'Lo is a chopper pilot. So he's flying. This dude can spot a marijuana plant at one single plant from, I am not exaggerating, 1,000 feet.
Yeah,
I spot it. I'm like, dude, what? And he's like, oh yeah, it's, he starts, I'm like, that is insane. But he did all these, marijuana flights, and then I think they made it legal or something. Like, he doesn't do it anymore. I'm like, that's crazy that they're making all of this stuff. This isn't about, I guess, not my opinion, but I think it's a little crazy that they're just making, hey, let's just have a free for all. And
how about that, huh? And expecting public health to get better and expecting addiction to go down doesn't really work like that. So
it doesn't feel like it does. I'm just saying. Huh? Yeah. So let me ask you, what is your company? And by the way, let's give a shout out to your amazing wife. She connected us and made this happen. Yeah. So thank you to your wife. But what is your company's goal? What's your goal with everything that you're doing? I know it's not just to see how quick you can jump on the next flight.
Yeah, that's definitely not that. So the goal really is to educate. I come from a law enforcement background, which we've already highlighted, but you have to educate before you get to enforcement. So what happens is we know just throwing people in prisons doesn't work, right? Because you're locking them up. It's basically putting someone in a closet, locking them up, and having them come out and expecting to have someone rehabilitated and do better. And it doesn't work like that. No. So ultimately, the more education we can do, the more prevention we can do on the front end, the less work on the back end, and the better public health. Now, to be clear, some people will ask me, what do you have to do to stop fentanyl use? And I go, well, if your goal is to stop it, then you're going to fail, because we're never going to stop completely any drug. That is just simply mathematically impossible. But can we do a lot better than what we're doing and significantly reduce it? Oh yeah. Yes, we absolutely can do that. So what do we need to do that? We need to be much more active up front. What's happening is when you get to the world of addiction and when you get to the world of availability and just all these moving parts that I'm sure we'll talk about today, it's what leads to the finished product, which is higher domestics, more crashes, more suicides, more self-harm, more aggression towards teachers, more aggression towards law enforcement, all of it. It's not the only reason we see that. But boy, substances are a core reason of all of that. So we talk about, hey, just give you an idea. I did a training yesterday for, I won't say what state. I was down south. So I was down south yesterday, and I did a training for probation. And it was a statewide training, and I had probation from all over their state in my training. And I told them, I go, our goal is to reduce the prison population. You're seeing that. Legislators, governors, everybody's talking about that. We want to reduce the prison population, which I agree with. If we can reduce the prison population, that's great. But I said, why is it not going down? We're making a conscious effort to reduce the prison population. Why is it not reducing? Why is it not going down? We're letting people out earlier. We're letting some people out that probably shouldn't be out. We're reducing sentences. We're doing a lot to let them out. So why is it not going down? And my answer to them was this: when you commit certain crimes based on the substances you use, we can't let you out of prison because of these certain crimes that you're committing. So we have to now get to the core of reducing some of the substances you're using and get that down to then get the acts that you do while high on substance down, if that all makes sense, right? Yeah. Cause and effect of it. So we need to go more to the core of it instead of just going to the finished product of it. And that's one thing that we still have more work to do.
I see videos on X almost daily of some of the, and I don't, I try to process things with some semblance of logic. And I see, these videos of people just slumped over on fentanyl in LA and other cities. And I just wondered, number one, how true that is. Yeah. It looks real. I've seen videos of Oakland, California, where it's like, what is that now? And I'm sure it's not the entire city. I'm sure it's just certain parts, but how is that real? I mean, it looks like there's a bunch of zombies in some of these places.
So unfortunately it is. And it's not just in our big cities. The big cities are where the cameras are. Now it's not, you're not going to see it in Salina, but you might see it in, Plano, McKinney. You might see it in some of those areas, not as much as you would see in Dallas or Austin, but population matters. But, we are seeing, and it is accurate. So, we call those people on the nod or nodding out. So many times they have just used a substance or recently used a substance, and that is the euphoria from the substance. And in some cases that could be the overdose effects also from said substances. So it is accurate. Unfortunately, those numbers are going up. They're going up across the country. The impact of that's going up across the country. And that's something we're trying to get a grasp on because, in some cases you have areas where law enforcement will respond, use Narcan, and then drive away. So, and even law enforcement, we're sitting back saying, are we helping this person if we just revive them and then drive away? I mean, to be clear.
And leave them there?
Yeah, I fully support Narcan. I 100% support Narcan. I think everybody should have Narcan. I think we should be distributing Narcan because if we can keep people alive, we should be doing that. That's my stance on that.
I agree.
The driving away part, I'm kind of like, shouldn't there be something else that we do? So something that's added. And I mean, that's where we're struggling because, there's a financial piece to that. There's an availability of beds and resources. I mean, it's not just, hey, we can just do all these great things easily. So I understand there's some logistical problems with it, but in some agencies, that's kind of the response. We're seeing some changes with that. Now we're starting to see agencies put other people in place that after that they respond, they follow up, they go to the house, or if they're, homeless, they might go and find the person and try to work with them, give them resources. So we are improving that, but we still have some ways to go with that.
Being someone, and you didn't even know I'm in recovery. So, being someone that has been homeless as an adult, and I wrote about it in my first book. I'm like, it ultimately it was my choice because it was, but I think about like the root cause, like when you look at, addiction of anything, what is the root cause? And doing what you're doing and the trainings you do with the people that are boots on the ground, how do you address the root causes? Because you can't just go. I remember I sponsored this kid one time in AA, and he said, I can't believe in God. And I said, well, then you're screwed. Like if you can't believe in something outside of yourself, you're in trouble, dude. So
right, you need to have some hope.
Yeah. How do you address it?
So as you see from my tagline there on my logo, it says you can't stop what you don't know. That's the first step right there. How can you stop anything or prevent anything or impact anything if you don't even know what it is, if you don't know what you're looking at, if you don't have an understanding? It would be like, I'm sure at some point you went to a counselor. Yep. So when you went to that counselor, it would be like them saying, so what's this alcohol you speak of? And what do you do? And how does it make you feel? And where do you get it? And what's it smell like? And having no understanding of the substance you're using.
Yeah.
But then now you're looking at this person going, wait, you have no idea of this, but you're supposed to help me? So you're supposed to
I went to a counselor like that.
Actually. Yeah. And you didn't feel much hope when you walked outside that door, nor did you feel like you were too interested in going back.
Right.
So with that in mind, that's where it all starts. People ask me who I train, for instance, and I say, if you deal with drugs, I train you. Judges, law enforcement, mental health, treatment, counselors, parents, schools, nurses, doctors, EMS, doesn't matter. If you deal with drugs in any way, shape, or form in the United States or now other countries now too, I train you. So with that in mind, all these different sectors all deal with the same people and same families. It's just geography of where they deal with them at. So the school teacher, the principal, the judge, the prosecutor, the EMS person, all deals with the same person. It's just geography. So they all need to have an understanding of what's truly going on, what's being sold, what's available, why we're seeing more kids using elementary schools, all this stuff. You need to have an understanding of all this stuff that's going on to understand where we're at, but also where we're going and what's coming, right? Because if you don't have a plan, you operate like a group without a plan, and that usually never goes well. So
did you just say elementary schools?
We are seeing more drug use in elementary schools. Long story short, vaping is opening up the substance use world to elementary kids. So what's happening is we're seeing vaping as young as second grade. I was recently told about a first grader here about a week ago, but generally it's second grade, including in Texas. So we're seeing vaping in second grade, and that's opening up kids to substances. And the vape world is putting various different substances in vapes. It's more than just nicotine. We are finding things that we call Delta 8, Delta 10, THCO, HHC, which are synthetics in vapes, cannabis in vapes. And we're even seeing drugs like fentanyl and methamphetamine in vapes. So what happens, if you can wrap your head around this, a vape pen, many kids presume to be safe, and they don't have any perception of harm towards vapes.
Right.
So if I were to put a drug in a syringe, most sixth graders are not going to jab a syringe into their arm because sixth graders are afraid of syringes. All right. So most high school kids aren't jabbing anything in their arm because that's a stigma. They're not going to do it. You put it in a vape, there's no perception of harm. It can be the same exact drug. It's just your distribution method changes. And now more kids are open to use it. So we're seeing more substances younger. And what I need you to wrap your head around is this. Think about the issues that your friends have shared with you now that they're seeing on the streets, right? With mental health, depression, suicides, aggression. Most of those people who started using that are now, our age, 40, 50, 60 years old, that started using drugs, started around the age of 13, and they did not start with drugs nearly as potent as what our kids are starting with today. And our kids today are starting at a younger age. So what does that mean for mental health in 10, 12, 15 years, 20 years? And that's why when I say it's going to get worse, it's going to get significantly worse. It's got to be better at some point. We're just not there yet.
Okay, so let's pretend for a moment that I'm a cop and I'm going through your training and I'm a patrol officer. And I come across these guys that I have to jab with Narcan and whatever. What can that officer or that probation officer, or what is something that they can do to address, again, I don't want to beat it to death, but the root cause of the problem, which this is just my opinion. I think it's a lack of a spiritual connection. But what can they do for that person besides keep them alive with Narcan?
It all depends on the agency. The nice, cute way of saying it would be, well, we get them mental health resources, we get them into treatment, we get them in a treatment center. That's the nice way. Realistically, boots on the ground, you're in rural Texas or you're in rural North Dakota, there's not a lot of resources out there. There's not a lot of places. How do you get them to the resources? You're talking about an individual who doesn't have a car. You're talking about an individual who doesn't have a job, so doesn't money pay for gas. So how do you get them to the resources? And then you're talking about a police agency that maybe is a one officer agency and doesn't have coverage from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So we talk about all this kind of great things we want to do, but everybody doesn't have the ability to do that. So in some cases, what do you do for them? Absolutely nothing, because you have zero resources to help them. And in other cases, you go to a larger city, well, there's more resources, but some of those resources cost money. Who's paying for that? And as you're seeing budgets and conversations, and I see some schools that are closing, and I see some layoffs that are happening, and I see some things going. I don't know how much extra money these agencies have to be doing that. Now, there are grants out there, so some people are able to apply for that. But again, let's go to rural Texas. Do you have a grant writer? Do you have someone who knows how to write a grant? So this is interesting stuff where people go, well, you can write grants. Okay, who's going to write the grant? Okay, who knows how to write a grant? Who knows how to go to the website that has the grant? And then who's going to manage the grant once you get it? Is that Gladys in the city clerk's office that's doing that? That she does 19 other jobs too? She's not too interested in taking on another one. So understand that there's all these logistical pieces that we have, because rural America is getting hit also. It's not just our big cities. The big cities is, when I watch the nightly news, it's the big cities that I see.
Right.
But guys, my training tomorrow, I fly to an airport and I drive almost 200 miles to get to my training. My training that I did earlier this week was a 3.5-hour drive from the airport. So just this week is very rural America, right? So they don't have resources. I'm in rural America. I'm boots on the ground in rural America. I'm talking with these guys. They don't have the resources. And some of them are already overrun, already overwhelmed, and already tired. And the last thing they want is more things handed to them. So to do what I mean. So we have to understand that there's some logistical problems with all this too. One of the reasons that we're seeing some issues impacting it.
Is there a solution?
More money, more resources. That's what we need. And how we get to that solution, that's probably people that are much higher up than me on the food chain. But more money, more resources, and ways to get people to resources. We've seen some of that with voting. We've seen some of we're going to open up different voting places. We're going to get people, free busing on election day. We've seen people recognize it with that. We need to do the same thing with substances. Maybe there's a thing where you say, okay, well, it's free busing if you're going to a treatment center. I mean, these other things, we need to figure some of those logistical things out, because the people that sometimes need help the most have the least amount of resources to get the help. And then it feels hopeless. And they just go, well, forget it. I guess this is the hand I'm dealt, and this is the life I'm going to live.
It's people don't understand. I understand. I've been to the funerals of addicts and alcoholics that couldn't get, couldn't for whatever reason get it under control, where there's 4 people at their funeral, and 2 of those are employees of the funeral home. So it's like, it's sad, and it's I for whatever reason, I have survivor's guilt once in a while, but for whatever reason, by the grace of God, I know a lot of people that have recovered from drug addiction, and I keep going back to what is the root cause and how do we fix that, and take that message to the boots on the ground. Here's the other thing. Cops are, can I just throw, like, they're just not respected like they used to be.
Yeah.
and it's sad. I think it's pathetic, actually. But and then you go, hey, by the way, we're going to get some training on how we can help all of our local drug addicts. Like what? Like, right? They can't be fired up about that.
Here's what's funny about that. Back in my boots on the ground days, the people that suffer from substance use disorder actually treated me pretty well. They actually treat law enforcement pretty well because there's so much interaction, and they understand that when they treat law enforcement well, it just goes better. Didn't have a lot of issues with those individuals. We really didn't, because I remember taking some people, to treatment centers, hospitals, and they would kind of look at me and be like, well, it kind of is what it is. I'm going through withdrawals and I just need something. And you kind of look at them and go, yep, I understand what you're saying. And I mean, there was this understanding that we had that, okay, I know that you're kind of milking the system because you just want to get to a doctor and try to get more pills prescribed. Yeah. But per my policy, I have to take you to said doctor. So I'm just going to drive you over there. You're going to go over there. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I mean, they kind of nodded me. I nodded them. And that's the way that went. Now we've cut down on the doctor shopping a little bit and some of those things. Yeah. But to be honest with you, a lot of folks in your addiction world actually are quite respectful to law enforcement. They don't give law enforcement a very hard time. The individuals that many times you see giving law enforcement a hard time are the ones that kind of have everything, right? So sometimes I watch the news, I go, that person doesn't look like they're down on their luck, but boy, they seem to be really upset with that police officer that didn't do anything to them. So it's kind of interesting how this works out, right? So a lot of the people that I remember working with, there's one I still communicate with today.
Wow.
Who I arrested for meth. I had forgotten about him. It was a meth arrest. I wrote the report, took him to jail, and went on about my business. And years later, he tracks me down. He's still in the Boise, Idaho area. And he now is in the prevention treatment world and has been in recovery now because I would have arrested him over 20 years ago. So he's been in the recovery world that long. And I remember his name. I run him at a conference about every 2 to 3 years. We still talk. I take a photo with him, and all of it. And you couldn't tell right now where his life was, right? Where his life was at one point. But he still thanks me every time he sees me. So, I tell people most of the interactions between law enforcement and the general public, different from what you see on the media, are really good. We have good interactions. I mean, sometimes if I'm taking you to jail, that's a 40-minute ride. We got to have something to talk about. So You're talking about family, kids, how we got where we are, how I got into law enforcement, how they got into the substance use world. You have 99% of my interactions with the general public went well, including people I arrested. So
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. It's quite a bit different than sometimes it's portrayed.
I may or may not know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I've and that's one of the things that I said when I did all of the stuff for the narcotics officers. I was like, I got to give back, man, because I was one of the fortunate ones. But so let me ask you this, because I do have a lot of law enforcement that watch this show. A friend of mine's chief of police in North Carolina for an agency, and so like what? I don't know how to ask this. Why would somebody hire you to come and teach or train? What are you going to show up and teach or train on? And
a couple things I'm very well known for. One is community environmental scans. That's a cute way of saying I dive into the drug world and I dive into the stores in your area. So for the last 15 years, I started just doing these on my own, and now individuals contract with me to do it. So basically give you a couple of examples here. I go into your smoke shops, dispensaries, gas stations, liquor stores, shopping malls, identify drug culture and climate in your area. But because I do this so much, it allows, and I train in all 50 states, it allows me to compare let's say you are in Charleston, South Carolina. I can compare Charleston to Columbia, Columbia to Lexington, Lexington to Irmo, Irmo to Greenville. But I can also compare South Carolina, North Carolina to California to Wyoming. So I have this ability to tell you not only what you have versus other states, what you don't have yet, what is coming, what's in your region, what you sell more of that other states don't sell more of, your price points, all of it. Where it's
You're talking drugs.
Yes, I'm talking drugs. And I'll give you a couple of examples of drugs that work like heroin, that are completely legal for my 9-year-old daughter can buy in 38 states. So we'll talk about that. But I do scans. Then I show you stuff you don't know. So my probation group yesterday, 5 minutes in a class, here's what I tell them. It was a 3-hour class yesterday. I said, you guys are not a one-on-one level. You work probation. You work with felons. You guys understand drugs. You do drug testing. You understand all this. I am going to show you a bunch of stuff you had no idea even existed in your state that your people are using, and you had no idea. And a lot of it, you see it, and you had no idea that it was being used and abused. So, and when I'm asking questions in class, I'll put up a photo on the screen and I'll say, what drug is this? And they all, yesterday I had about 200 people in each class. I did 2 of them, and they'll sit back, I don't know. And I'll say, that's funny because that photo is from your state. I took this photo yesterday in your state, 8 miles away, but you don't know what it is. So, and they sit back and go like, I don't know what it is, but some of them will go, I recognize that store. That's the gas station I go to every morning to get my coffee. That's the store I frequent. That's the shopping mall I shop in. So I show them all of that, which is what kind of it separates me from everybody else. Because I spend a ton of time boots on the ground, and I've done that for 15 years. So not only can I tell you that, I can tell you in Texas, a drug that was in Texas 5 years ago that is now, or vice versa. So I can show you a bunch of that stuff. And it changes the dynamic of it. And it can go from an hour to 2 days. I have 2 days, 2.5, 3 days worth of content I can show you. So
you can't stop what you don't know.
Correct.
Now it makes sense.
Correct.
So, okay, but you're not going undercover.
No,
there's no way.
Hard to put all this undercover. So hard to be discreet. So yeah, no, I'm undercover. Right. I think they're going to recognize if I'm an out of towner or not.
Right. You don't know me.
Yeah,
right. But so are you seeing fentanyl in stores? Like you're not.
No, but I do come across controlled substances in stores. Came across mushrooms, psilocybin shrooms in a store in the Midwest about 2 months ago. Other times there will be drugs that states have banned, like kratom, Kratom, which is legal in 44 states, including our great state of Texas. And kratom works like heroin. So it's legal in 44 states, and it works just like heroin. It's a plant that works like heroin with no age restrictions in most states. So a 5-year-old could purchase kratom if they had the money. Another one like tianeptine, Tianeptine. Tianeptine is a synthetic that works like heroin, used to get around drug tests, things like that. When I say these drugs work like heroin, they work like heroin. These drugs in higher doses are not weaker. In some cases, the withdrawals are worse than heroin or opioid withdrawals are. So we sell tianeptine's legal in 37, 38 states. So we have all these drugs that are trending, like those two you haven't heard of, Like from where you're sitting, you can find kratom within about 8 miles of where you're sitting. So there's stores right in your area that sell kratom.
What? And it works like heroin?
Works like heroin. It's a plant. Use it for withdrawals. They use it for pain relief. A lot of different reasons. Depends on the person. Depends on the dosing. A lot of moving parts with that. But we have all these drugs. There's so many over-the-counter drugs. There's drugs. Here, this is a good example. You go to the dollar store, you buy Imodium. Okay. So if you take one Imodium tablet, it's called loperamide. You take one loperamide tablet, it's back you up, stop you up, you're having stomach issues. You take 100 tablets, around 200 milligrams, it works like heroin in your body, works like opioids in your body. So we have people that will go to communities and go to the dollar store or Walmart or CVS, Walgreens or Kroger, what have you, and they go steal Imodium. And the store is like, why are people stealing Imodium? I don't understand. This doesn't make sense to me. Why they're stealing Imodium, those are drug seekers. Those are drug seekers going through withdrawal symptoms, and they're stealing Imodium to offset the withdrawals until they can score heroin or fentanyl again. So, that's just a snapshot. I could keep you here all day. So it's stuff like that.
Is unbelievable. Well, first off, you would never go to the bathroom again.
But when you are going through withdrawals, and I'm sure you remember this from your alcohol withdrawals, the last thing you are concerned about is consequences. You don't care about consequences. That's the last thing you think about. So I explain this to law enforcement. When you're dealing with someone that's going through heroin or opioid withdrawals, the last thing they care about is you saying, I'm going to take you to jail tomorrow if you do it again. That's the last that they will worry about that when that day gets here. So they are worried about feeding the withdrawals and offsetting the withdrawals. That's the real life issue that they are worried about. So that's just a snapshot of what the heck is going on and why things are so bad out there.
You just reminded me of I heard a guy talk, really old time sober guy from Kentucky. I heard him talk one time, and he said, many times, and people will hear this, people have this disease of addiction, and all that disease wants to do is kill them. And he said, I don't think my disease wants to kill me. He said, in fact, I don't think my disease cares. The only thing it wants is another drink. That's it. Another drink.
And use it to offset the withdrawals, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to offset withdrawals. You know, sometimes us folks not going through withdrawals have a really hard time wrapping our head around the sickness and illness of withdrawal symptoms. We can't understand why someone would do these things. But if you understand, withdrawals don't care about consequences. It's the last thing they care about. They don't care about losing their license. They don't care about losing their family. They don't care about losing their money. You know, you guys just saw some of the info on, you know, one of our famous actors from ketamine overdose and how much money he was spending on that. It's the last thing he was concerned about. It's the last thing they care about. You care about the withdrawals and feeding the addiction, and that is all you care about, and you will do whatever it takes to do that. And that's what we have to be helping people more with.
Wow. Jermaine, you freaking rock, man. I was not expecting all this today. I'm just being honest. I thought you were going to be great, but not this great. So there's your website scrolling across the bottom. I'm sitting here thinking of some people I can definitely connect you with, and that will benefit you and them. So this has been incredible. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we wrap this up? I don't want to hold you up from catching your flight.
Yeah, I heard they don't hold airplanes for you. So you can sign up for my newsletter. You see a tall cop says stop there. You go there, you'll get a pop-up. You can sign up for my newsletter. We have over 80,000 people throughout the United States on our newsletter blast list that goes out once a month. So it just went out yesterday, so you're not going to get the August one, but you get September. So I write articles and I put drug information in there. You can do that. We also host a big conference. We're always looking for sponsors because this is a grassroots conference. It's called Emerging Drug Trends. EmergingDrugTrends.com is the website. This year it's in Dallas in October. And it's a conference. We draw about 300 to 500 to it, but we don't have federal support or any of that. Not that anyone's against us, but we don't have, you know, a lot of these big conferences, you know, have a big federal backer or a big state. That's not us. I started this at a grassroots level just to bring quality information, quality trainers to people that need it, kind of like the information I shared with you today. Yeah. So any support for that, any sponsorships for that is always welcome. That just helps us offset costs and get more people in. We scholarship people in. You know, with inflation now, the food prices they're quoting us. I said, how's a can of coffee cost that much, right? Can I just bring my own? So all of that. So any support for that would be awesome too. Emerging Drug Trends. We do that every year. Years in Dallas. So
what kind of sponsor are you looking? Are you pulling in law enforcement primarily?
Everybody. That conference, because I gear that conference the way I gear my trainings. Everybody. So we get nurses, schools, hospitals, law enforcement, state troopers, drug enforcement officers, alcohol enforcement officers. We get everybody. We cover the wide gamut of drugs from mental health to every aspect of it, to prevention strategies, to youth, to adult, all of it. So it really, any type helps. It just offsets a bunch of the costs. Like I got the AV quote today and I was like, holy cow, just to run a projector, huh? So, you know, it is pretty amazing how much everything costs nowadays, but you know, everyone's dealing with it, not just us. So any of that help or anybody you know who'd be interested, that'd be great. We'd appreciate it.
Well, and one big way that everybody watching can help is share this out. So Jermaine's message gets out to everybody. What a story you have, man. Holy moly. I love what you're doing. And any way I can help support it, I'm definitely in. So
appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Everybody go to tallcopsaysstop.com. If you're listening on the podcast networks, Tall Cop Says Stop. It's really easy.com. And sign up for the newsletter and support what Jermaine is doing here in any and every way you possibly can. I have some connections I'm going through in my head. So I think I can connect you with some people that can help for sure. So anyway, so thank you very much, Jermaine, for spending the time before you go catch that flight. I really appreciate you coming on and your authenticity, man. I love it. I love it. So thanks,
you. Ken, appreciate it.
Yeah. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to end this live stream, but everybody please go share this out. If you already shared, share again. If you haven't shared, you can redeem yourself and go ahead and share. So thank you, and we will see you all soon. Thank you so much, Jermaine.
You're welcome. Thank you.